So it's a very, very interesting. In Sanskrit, one of the words for digestion is the same word for health. In other words, health and digestion are synonymous, which means to the extent that you can digest something is to the qualification of your health. Does that make sense? Your ability to digest something indicates the quality of your health. So if we're having a challenge, if our body is not being able to digest food properly, if that's also going to cause issues. So we are going to touch a little bit on that as well, because it's not just the qualities of the food exclusively. If your body is, if you're having allergic reactions to foods, even if they're the quote unquote foods that are going to help balance you, they're not necessarily going to have that effect, or they could be even it could be making the situation worse. So let's do something fun. Are you guys okay to do something fun as we jump into this? All right. If you're not, just please close your ears like this, and we'll tell you when to come back on. When we're looking at different body types, we want to help you guys identify a little bit of your prakriti. Some of you, it's going to be super clear and obvious. It's like, yeah, that's me. Some of you are like, maybe. Don't worry about it so much. I just want to give you some basic understanding of your natural alignment. So let's look at your physical structures. The way I want you to do this, we're going to talk about different body parts. Say, for instance, our body type and our body structure, which we'll start with. What I want you guys to do is the one that you are, I'll give examples of each, and the one that you are specifically from a young age and most of your life, like your default, the way it's been most of your life. I want you you're going to put that in. So for instance, it'd be a V, a P, or a K. So let's try this. So the first one, for instance, is a Vata body type. Is a very long, slender body type, usually very thin, very hard to put weight on. Typically very hard to put weight on, and very long features, long arms, a longer face, longer fingers. Everything with Vata is just going to be a little bit longer. Whereas a Kapha body type is going to be very stocky, very wide, as I was jokingly saying. We tend to be the thick in modern vernacular. Everything about us is wider, denser. Whereas a Pitta is, they're the ones that come out of the womb with a six-pack, kind of looking muscular. The Pitta, you'll find it tends to be somewhere in the middle of a Vata and the Pitta. A Vata and a Kapha. A Pitta body type is one that's going to be naturally muscular. There's going to be a natural definition, or as we might say, cut, right? So I'm hitting this really brief, but according to which one you've been most of your life, I want you to throw in V, P, or K. Are you one of those people that hard to put weight on, just like super skinny? Are you Kapha? Or you just tend to be like, you tend to be a little bit bigger boned, as we like to say, like myself, wider? Are you a Pitta? You're just kind of you never really had to try much. It's like, yeah, you look pretty, most good, but sure, there's always been there. Yeah, good. So we're gonna go through other features like that in the same way. I want you to throw in a V, P, or K. Good. Thumbs up. Very good. All right. Let's talk a little about the hand. Everyone, put your hand up like that. The hand is also going to tell us a lot about when we're looking at the palm and the fingers. So a Vata hand is going to be a hand that's going to have more of a slender palm, slender, longer fingers as well. These very long fingers. Whereas a Kapha hand, mine's a good example of this. We're going to see it's going to be very earthy. It's going to be very wide. It's going to be very dense. Even if you're talking about texture, also, a Kapha hand's going to have a little bit more meat on it. And we're also going to have shorter, stockier fingers. Aren't those cute little, see my little stubby fingers? Cute, right? Little cute Kapha fingers. A Pitta hand is going to be somewhere in the middle. It's usually going to have a pinkish tint to it, a pinkish tint to it. It's not going to be noticeably long and skinny. It's not going to be noticeably short and stocky. It's going to be somewhere in the middle, usually with a pinkish tint. What kind of hand do you guys have? Also, if at any point you guys have questions as we're going through or something doesn't make sense, just unmute for me or throw it into the group chat, okay? As questions come up. Let's talk about jaw structure. So a Kapha is going to have a very wide, broad jaw structure, very wide and broad, a very square-like face, or square-like face. Whereas a Vata is going to have a very narrow, longer face. narrow and long. Pitta is going to have somewhere in the middle with a very chiseled jawline. Chink, chink, chink. A very notable jawline. What type of jaw y'all got? Kind of facial structure. Let's talk about hair. So Vata hair is going to be very thin and very curly. Very thin and very curly hair. Whereas Kapha hair is going to be very thick and very oily. Thick and very oily. Pitta hair is going to be, it can either be straight or wavy. It's typically straight, typically wavy. And it's going to have lighter tints, copper or blonde tints. Even if you have dark hair, you guys know what I mean when I say tints, like there's going to be natural, hues, like lighter hues. And so again, Kapha is going to be very thick, usually wavy or straight. Pitta also wavy or straight, not notably thick, not notably thin, but with lighter tones. Whereas Vata hair is going to be very thin and very curly. What kind of hair y'all's got? Cool. Let's do one more. How about, let's do eyes. Let's see your eyes. If we go like this. Beautiful. Oh, guys, stop. Oh. So when we're talking about our eyes, Kapha eyes are those, when you think of those like puppy dog eyes, some people you see and they're just like these big soft eyes that you look at, you're like, oh, you're just a sweet person. I hope you guys know I am jesting here and there too. But Kapha eyes are these big eyes. I'm kind of like making fun of myself and bragging. So you guys see what I'm doing? Big eyes. And they're going to be very, very like soft, very soft eyes. Whereas Vata eyes are going to tend to be a little bit smaller. They also have, this is a little bit more subtle, but they have a little swoopity doobity. Pitta and Kapha eyes at the bottom eyelid is going to go all the way across. The Vata eye is going to go ooh, scoop right about there. It's going to go scoop. It's going to be a little bit smaller eyes, and they're going to be darker. They're usually in terms of, think of like spacey eyes. You ever look into people's eyes and it's like, wow, I'm looking in the universe. These eyes that are just like universal, man. Pitta eyes are going to be sharp. They're going to be sharper. They're usually going to have, they're going to be red. You can actually see the redness in the eyes themselves. It's going to be like a reddish hue to them. And they're going to be sharp. Does anyone ever just look at you and you're like, is that person looking at me that way? It's like with some intensity. It's Pitta. What kind of eyes do you guys got? So now I want you guys to look at, raise your hand if all of those was one. If all those was just Kapha, or all those were just Vata, or one of the Pitta. Okay, some of you. Raise your hand if it was more than one, like two. Raise your hand if it was two, one or two. Just kind of back and forth. Anyone here have three? Have three different types? Okay. Yeah. Tridoshic is extremely rare. Very rare. It's possible. But usually you're going to have one primary and one secondary. So those of you who had one primary, we could probably understand pretty clearly about your Prakriti in terms of what your dominant is. For those of you who had two, well, let's take a second, and in the group chat, I want you to say like, what was the most dominant, or what was the most common? What was the second most common? So for instance, for me, it was very much Kapha and Pitta were the most commons for me. Mostly Kapha, but also some Pitta. So you could do like, I would do like KP. What was your guys's? Primary followed by your secondary.